10,000 kilos of gold is the amount of gold that we have been sort of earmarked. Once we start to reach that through the sale of our gold token, we will then be able to set an amount per month going forward, which will be also of a significant amount. They don't just deal in gold, they also deal in silver, in platinum, and also palladium. So there are 4 metals.
What is going on, ADA Nation? Welcome to the official Dapp Central YouTube channel. My name is Fareed, and as a part of today's video, I've got a very special guest, which is going to be Thomas Tallis, the CEO of the Twin Protocol, which has just announced they're building on Cardano. Now, as a part of today's video, what I want to do is break down and find out more about Twin, and no better person here to do that with than the CEO, Thomas himself. Welcome to the channel, Thomas. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me.
Not a problem. You guys have been building here for just a little bit, and I'm interested to find out more as to what you guys have prepped here for the Cardano community. So without taking up any more time, let's just dive straight on into it. And do you mind maybe just kind of kicking this off here with a brief overview of what Twin is and where the inspiration behind the creation of a platform like Twin has come from?
Sure. So Twin is in the business of tokenizing real world assets, and we are starting from the precious metals sector, and our MVP is with a gold-backed token. But really, I've got to go back actually from when I was a child, and I was lucky enough to grow up in many different areas because of my father's work. And what I understood pretty quickly is that there are so many sort of assets that, for the most part, or at least with, for the most people, they're untouchable in the sense that, they don't have access to them whatsoever. And there is an abundance of assets that have tangible, understandable value. And what tokenization of assets does is allows people all over the world to be able to take part, if they so wish, invest into these types of assets. And of course, the tokenization, or another way of saying the fractionalization of these assets, breaks down the unit into sizes that can be affordable regardless of whether you're from the United States or Indonesia or really wherever you are. So the inspiration is coming from the understanding that what I think is needed are financial tools that are readily accessible, widely accessible, and allow people to invest into assets which up until this point have been virtually impossible for them to get into.
Interesting take there. So it seems like the inspiration comes from allowing people to tap into the real world assets that they own or that they may want to purchase, and really giving them access to financial tools that they haven't had before.
Yeah, it's not so much about assets that they own, but for example, I'm in Jamaica right now, and there's a lot of bauxite, which is an incredibly precious, iron ore mineral. But the people that own the bauxite mines and the people that trade in it aren't the masses. They are obviously the companies and the investors that stand behind the mining of bauxite. So just driving around, and I was just thinking, here's another real world asset that has real value. In bauxite has only gone up actually over the last X decades. It is incredibly sought after. So imagine if you were able to offer a tokenized version of bauxite, where people were able to buy a token that represented a certain fractionalized unit of that. That would be very powerful. It is very powerful. So it's not necessarily about sort of tapping into assets that they already own. It's about opening up a market which can deliver upsides. But if they were to try and get in as things stand, it's impossible, because you don't go along and knock on the door of the bauxite mine and say, hey, I want to buy. It just doesn't happen. But if you had a representation through a token of a particular asset, then that's really where it starts to get really interesting. And really, wherever I look, there are so many different assets which I'm sort of, they are sort of standing out really clearly, that these are assets that can be tokenized and actually benefit from people purchasing, and it would be an alternative store of value to what they have accessible to them at the moment, which is pretty slim.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So it's not going to be allowing people to tap into tokenizing their own personal assets, but rather opening up a market to tokenize things that are already kind of available and bringing that to the masses. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, and it's not to say that we wouldn't be looking at tokenizing assets that people already own, but I just wanted to make that clarification that it's a whole new world essentially, where rather than investing into fiat and fiat structures, or indeed crypto, there is in fact, through tokenization, there are countless numbers of real world assets that could be tokenized and could be offered to a mass audience, allowing them much more alternatives, or selection, I should say.
Got it. Makes sense. Now, you mentioned something here, which is actually going to be tying into my next question. But before we get into that, do you mind maybe talking about, how does a platform like Twin plan to bridge the gap between real world assets, or RWAs, and the DeFi space? And do you also mind kind of touching on how the actual tokenization process is going to look like?
Sure. Well, we are, Twin is going after particular licensing and regulation, because the tokens are going to be classified as security. So at least at the moment, that's what it looks like. There can be some changes, and we've already seen certain sort of initial rulings coming from different regulatory bodies that might actually differ that. But for the moment, we are dealing with securities. So we will need to do the sort of the KYC and the onboarding that would be expected with any other security. But once you've purchased an RWA token from that's on our platform, of course, you're able to then freely transfer that, or exchange it and move it around in the DeFi space. So the bridge between RWAs and DeFi is, right now, DeFi doesn't really have a sort of a succinct sort of platform or pool of RWAs. We bring the RWAs, and we will be continually bringing further real world assets. Like I said, we start with precious metals, and we'll be moving on. But really, the once you've been sort of KYC'd and we've done our checks, which we will need to do to be compliant, of course, you'll then be free to move those RWAs or your assets around. And that's really the bridging, as you say, between the RWA, or real world asset as a sector, and DeFi.
Awesome. Okay. So now that we understand the process, this is what I wanted to ask you earlier. You said you're going to be starting with precious metals. So what is going to be some of the first assets that you guys are looking to support on the Twin platform in terms of RWAs?
Right. So I'm very fortunate that about a year ago, I came into contact with really one of the world's most, you could probably count them on one hand as being one of the most recognized dealers within precious metals. Their vault is in the Channel Islands, which is between England and France. And they are a significant actor within the precious metal sector. They've been trading precious metals for donkey's years, but what they've understood is that they ought to be really also moving with the times, because their business is very sort of conservative with the small c. They've been selling precious metals for fiat in a very conventional way, but also through some of their own clients actually asking about what their own ambitions were to fractionalize or tokenize, or to bring those sort of assets on chain. It was incredibly good timing. And I just happened to start getting to know who is now our partner. And we understood that what they were looking for was really someone like Twin, who could actually then come and actually assist them on expanding and bringing or allowing for the tokenization of their assets in addition to their conventional sales. So they're not stopping or reducing what they're doing. They're merely, with Twin, they understand that this opens up the market exponentially and really is something that they are also very excited about. So our starting point is with gold. We have a very, I would say, decent initial allotment. Sorry, it's the wrong word, but allocation. 10,000 kilos of gold is the amount of gold that we have been sort of earmarked. Once we start to reach that through the sale of our gold token, we will then be able to set an amount per month going forward, which will be also of a significant amount. They don't just deal in gold, they also deal in silver, in platinum, and also palladium. So there are 4 metals. So that is why we're starting with precious metals. It's also, those 4 metals are very easily understood as being real world assets. So, if you would just, to stop anybody in the street and ask, is gold an RWA? Most people would say yes. You don't really need to explain the sort of why gold is considered to be an RWA. But once we have gone through the tokenization of these 4 metals, and it will be in the order of gold, then silver, and then platinum and palladium simultaneously, we will then start to expand and bring other RWAs, whether that would, it could be, apples from South Tyrol, it could be cocoa from Ghana, it could be precious whiskey in barrels from distilleries in Scotland, it could be bauxite from Jamaica. But we're starting with the metals that we know that we've got access to thanks to our partnership.
So much to take in there. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, Thomas. You said 10,000 kilos of gold? Initially
10,000. So that is something that we that we have gone into a partnership with, and we know that is readily available. Subject to us, of course, selling sufficient token that would account to 10,000 kilos worth of gold. But once we're approaching that, then we will be able to sit down with our partner, and like I said, then set out a monthly amount that we would then forecast that we would need. So it really is a very healthy supply.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that. I'm like, let me just make sure I heard him correctly, because I've heard of other people trying to do this very similar thing.
Right.
Again, you mentioned that, this is going to be marked as a security. And I think that's kind of been the biggest hurdle with other people trying to do this, is trying to get through the regulations and things like that. Right. But then the amount itself is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, of course, regulation it needs to be dealt with, and of course you could say that as a hurdle, but actually regulation, once you understand, the good thing with securities and regulation that stands behind securities is that you know exactly what type of regulation we need to go after. We're going after regulation that has been tried and tested by countless different companies that have been rolling out different types of securities. So the actual road that we need to go down is well trodden. So that's actually a positive from our side. I'm very aware of others that have wanted and have expressed a desire, say, to tokenize gold. The real issue is trying to find a supplier that is LBMA certified, like ours is, that is audited, that basically ticks all the boxes. It is, and I will put my hand up and say that there has been a great deal of fortune in the fact that I was just in the right place at the right time, speaking with a significant trader or actor within the precious metals sector, who at the same time understood that tokenizing what they trade in would be a good idea. So there was in that sense, there was a lot of luck, because like I said, it was just about good timing. But trying to find a supplier that can supply this the types of precious metals that we will have access to, that's really going to be the main challenge for anybody else wanting to try and tokenize for example, precious metals. There aren't many, and in fact since I've been planning and rolling out Twin, I'm not aware of actually any other source that could, in theory, go to and knock on their door and get the same type of supply, the same type of quantity.
Yeah, again, that's literally, I think, been the biggest hurdle with other people that have tried to do this before. So I'm extremely happy to hear that. Number one, you guys have that quantity, but then number two, that the regulations are not going to be a hurdle preventing you guys from actually launching this, right? Now, I do have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Go ahead.
so I was going to say that, the thing with regulation, and especially with DeFi regulation, is like, if you take, MiCA, which is, the new laws that are coming, via the EU. The issue is that they're so new that so a lot of the elements are yet to be tested. In fact, DeFi really hasn't really been tackled in any such depth at all when it comes to MiCA. So that is really why I said it's an advantage, because by being classified, or as our tokens being classified as securities, we don't need to try and second guess what might happen in a year's time or 2 years' time. As the legislation starts to settle down and they understand actually how it falls into place, because the laws and regulation that we're going after, like I said, have already been in place for countless years. So we know precisely what we need to go after and exactly what we need to do in order to be compliant and be able to operate.
That's really good news, because I think you're probably aware with everything else in crypto, because of a lack of prior regulation and a lack of history, it seems like we're trying to figure things out on the fly. So it's really good news to hear that we're not going to have to undergo that, and that, again, everything in terms of regulations is already kind of laid out and you guys have a clear path to follow. Now,
and also one really important point, it also allows us to work with institutions, because what institutions are always looking for is peace of mind. What they don't want to do is to go into a scenario where there might be, they want it to be clear cut. So, from my talks that I've been having with institutional networks so far, what they really like is that they know what we're going after, because it's the same regulation that they understand. So that will actually allow critical capital to come into Cardano. And I think that's going to be, a huge boost. Actually, it will be a huge boost to the whole ecosystem and blockchain. And I'm super excited to be part of bringing institutional capital flow into Cardano.
I believe the saying is rising tides raises all ships, or the rising tide raises all ships. I think this is a clear example of that. There's going to be such a huge inflow of TVL, especially if we can get some institutional adoption. And I think, just generally speaking with crypto, that's what we're waiting on, is the clarity, so we can really get these bigger players like Fidelity, BlackRock, etc., into the space. Now, I do have to touch on something here, which is something that you probably have already gotten questions surrounding, but that's going to be surrounding KYC and AML requirements. Again, because of the classification of these real world assets, how does that play a role with the launch of Twin?
Right, so you are correct. So you're going to have to be identified through a KYC process. But what I understand, and especially in the last 12 or 24 months, with so much hoo-ha going on, especially within crypto, I think actually people are they come to a point where they understand that having a secure way of identifying them, which through DIDs, which are now have progressed so much, it keeps their identity anonymous, yet it allows them to be part of a platform, for example, like Twin. I think most people are going to welcome it, because we've seen what can happen when there aren't systems or structures in place, and it's been something that I've been sort of toing and froing, but actually I'm very comfortable now that there will be a sufficient amount of people that will be fully okay with going through a sort of a KYC process, and then which would then allow them to compliantly trade and buy from Twin. When it comes to KYC, of course, we would not be doing it ourselves. There are a number of different partners which we've already started talking to. So we'd be then sort of not just working with one, but trying to pick the right type of KYC provider dependent on regions. So as we expand our market, we will then be working with a basket of KYC providers, each who have their sort of their field of expertise, depending on the jurisdiction we're talking about.
Thank you for that clarity. Again, I think, like you said, with the upcoming solutions like we're getting with Atala Prism as well as
Right.
IMX. There's going to be, I think, a little bit more confidence in providing KYC, especially when you don't have to continuously redo it over and over with multiple
Right.
different applications.
Right, and that so actually in terms of timing, real world assets, it's perfect timing. The fact that we actually now have solutions that are coming to the forefront, as you said, that are allowing people's information, sensitive information to be dealt with correctly, where there is a high degree of anonymity, yet at the same time they're able to be identified, so we can so they can actually proceed with transactions, say on Twin. I think everything is just culminating together, and it just seems to be things are fitting into place. So like I said, I feel that people are going to be welcoming that with the fact that we're doing this in a way which will give them also peace of mind that we're taking their funds, and we are also going through or they will be going through processes and will be adhering to processes which will be compliant and within sort of the oversight of regulators.
Awesome to hear. Now, I also want to clear up just a little bit of information for the viewers. The KYC will be in order to get access to the RWAs or the real world assets. There shouldn't be any requirements for KYC in order to hold the Twin token. Is that correct?
Right. So the KYC, imagine that you're coming onto Twin. So the first thing you'd do would be to open an account, just like any other or so many other platforms. That's when the KYC will take place. So, you can KYC and not purchase anything. It really is just about to know that Twin knows who you are. Once you've obviously been KYC'd and you have your account, you're free to buy and trade as many of the assets on our platform as you wish. So it's really about it's the starting point, like with so many exchanges and other platforms. And once you've actually been identified and you've created your account, then you're good to go.
Thank you. All right, let's keep things moving along because I do have a few other key questions that I want to make sure
Sure.
I get answered here. So the next one's going to be surrounding, what are the key differences between what you guys are offering and what other potential competitors have already, put out or have yet to put out? Could you maybe touch on what are the key core offerings that Twin is bringing to the table?
Sure. What I feel Twin offers is really is an experience. If I look at the other services that tokenize assets, and there are others out there that tokenize gold, they really don't do anything for me. When I go onto their sites, they all use the typical sort of what I call cartoon-like coin. It doesn't instill anything but a very, what I think, a very basic service. Twin is building an ecosystem. Twin is building, we've mentioned precious metals, but that's really just a starting point. We are going to be our own ecosystem that offers countless different types of RWAs, which we'll bring on board and onto our platform as we move forward. Lisa, who's in charge of the brand, she's doing a phenomenal job. She's amazing actually at creating the look and feel. Just Twin, the name itself, I think it's worth mentioning. There's a reason why it's not W and two V's. The two V's are the twins. And the twins stand for the fact that you have a token, and the other twin is the asset that stands behind the token. Those are the two twins. So there is so much that we can do with the name, and I'm confident that like with so many projects and new ideas, what's really important is for whoever's looking at it to really feel that it draws them in a good way, in a positive way. I don't see any other player out there tokenizing RWAs that is near or even remotely near to what Twin is doing in terms of its look and feel and how it's developing its brand. So that's really a very significant point. Sorry, the other part of your question,
It was, I think you answered it. It was basically, what sets Twin apart from other members that might be trying to do the same thing.
Right. Well, we're also talking with some really interesting guys in California. One of the main points that we're exploring is, imagine, thinking about Generation X and Generation Alpha. That's soon, soon going to be, soon going to be adults. Imagine being able to create sort of, a sort of a world within VR and metaverses where they can actually go in, they can access their twin vault. They will be accessing their twin vault in a secure way. But once they're open, there could be, where you would have your virtual, concierge sort of, guy or lady coming and asking if you want to view your assets. So sort of, there is so much that we've got in the pipeline of how we're going to make the whole UX, the whole experience of Twin. And again, if somebody wants to simply just do it, via their desktop or on their phone, that's fine. But what we're going to be doing is creating, as I said, this ecosystem where people will be able to immerse themselves into Twin, and not only purchase assets which they feel are going to, that are right for them, and hopefully will give them, a good return, but also by really sort of jumping in and understanding and seeing and almost touching how, the assets they hold and the assets that they could potentially trade. So this is going to be a brand that is not just critical, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. As you said, I think this is going to be more than just a single feature platform. This is going to be an entire ecosystem and an entire brand. And I also wanted to take a second here to say that I do agree with you. Your marketing and your branding has been spot on. It gives me a very elegant and exquisite feel when I see anything that you guys have posted. And for the viewers here, if you guys have yet to check out their website, you can head over, checking out the official Twin website using the link that I'll be leaving down in the description below. Now, let's move things a little bit further. And I've actually got one question here that kind of popped up in my mind as you were speaking earlier. So you mentioned precious metals launching first, but will the community at some point have a voice as to what other RWAs they'd like to see being brought onto the platform?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And thank you for bringing it up. And actually what it ties into is the DeFi sort of side of things as well. So there is planning, or we are planning right now, out the Twin DAO. I won't go into the actual structure of the DAO of how that's going to fit into the whole sort of, the whole company group, because we can save that for another time, because I think that will take up too much time. But essentially, there is a very neat way of taking a DAO, and it's, where a DAO is still going to be totally anonymous, without a fixed abode, but still can actually work nicely hand in hand with the actual platform that will be compliant with regulation. But the DAO itself is where members and Twix holders, which is our utility token, where they will be able to take decisions, like you just said. So, we've gone through the four metals, for example. We would then, or what we could do is then ask the DAO, okay, so what should we, or what would you like to see? Or we have the following options to bring these types of RWAs on, and allow them to sort of, have a voice of what they think should be the next RWA or RWAs that we bring onto the platform. So there is going to be absolutely sort of a two-way fluid conversation going on between Twin and our holders, our Twix holders, through the DAO. And that is absolutely a really important part of how Twin is going to develop. Twin is here to help people and to assist people by accessing assets that they wouldn't have, or up until now have not had access to. And we want to sort of, in the same way that we want to sort of, open up that access, we also want to hear what people want as well. And we're going to be listening very carefully through the DAO.
I think that's exactly what we need. Again, that's the ethos here within crypto, is the ability for everything to happen in a decentralized nature, right? For everybody to come together and put their vote in as to what assets they'd like to see coming online. So really positive answer there that I'm excited to hear about as to some of the utilities surrounding the Twix token. Now, we are coming up at about 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and just kind of land the plane here. I've got two last questions that I want to touch on. You guys have an ISPO that is currently ongoing. Do you mind explaining to the viewers here, what that's all about and what the goal of that is and how they could potentially get involved if they'd like to support the Twin protocol?
Right. So yes, you are correct. We have an ISPO going on. A critical date is actually just around the corner. It's the 31st of July. That is the date where you can sign up to our Gold Rush. And what the Gold Rush is that if you sign or if you delegate into our ISPO by the 31st of July and you stay until the 31st of December when our ISPO concludes, you will be eligible, depending on how much you obviously delegate, you'll be eligible for a proportionate amount of the 100 million twigs, which we will be dividing with all the participants who have successfully signed up by that deadline. So, if anyone is listening and it's not yet the 31st of July, if you jump in now, then that is a huge cherry on the cake. For those who are already delegating, of course, this will not affect the Twix that you've already been earning in rewards. This will just be an additional amount that you will be getting. As I said, it's 100 million Twix, which we're going to be dividing equally and proportionately, depending on how many people have taken advantage and delegated, either already in or delegated as new delegators before the 31st of July.
Thank you for that. And I'll be putting up some graphics here for the viewers to get a better understanding as to some of the parameters and some of those key dates that they need to go ahead and join the ISPO by in order to get access to some of those bonuses.
So I was just going to say that one other thing that's really super exciting is that we've hooked up with Nmaker. So if you jump in to the ISPO, the Twins ISPO, before the Gold Rush deadline, 31st of July, and you delegate 2,500 ADA or more, that will also allow you to be whitelisted, whitelisted onto what is in fact CARDANO's first ever gold-backed NFT sale. So that is something that anyone that's listening and is interested or thinking about coming into the Twin ISPO right now is an excellent time. And if you come in with more than 2,500 ADA, your name, if you so wish, can be whitelisted, and you'll be able to take advantage of the first gold-backed NFT sale on Cardano. And as I said, in collaboration with Nmaker.
That is new news to me. Again, I'll be putting up some graphics here for the community to get a better understanding as to how to get a part of that. So I'm definitely going to be thinking about going ahead and definitely making sure to jump in that ISPO now, not only in order to get that bonus, but also to be a part of that NFT sale. Let's keep things moving along. I've got two more questions here. So you guys recently announced a partnership with Optim Finance. Can you kind of explain exactly how that fits in here with your vision for Twin?
Sure. What we love about what Optim is doing, and we're going to be working with them on many different aspects, but crucially, their ISPO bonds, really fits into our sort of corporate ethos, how we also look and think, how can we better the community? How can we give them more options? So we've gone through already, earlier on the talk about how we are, essentially taking RWAs, we're tokenizing them. We're going to then, allow people to come and purchase those in a fractionalized way if they so wish. So what really sort of caught my attention is this really, phenomenal ISPO bond from Optim, where if you don't have the amount of ADA, for example, let's just say that you wanted to be whitelisted on for the for Cardano's first gold-backed NFT sale, but you didn't have 2,500 ADA, for example. Well, they would then be able to, through their bond service, be able to help you out, where so you're getting best of both worlds. So what's really struck us from Optim's side is that they share a lot of how we think, which is about being creative and how tools financial tools can be really optimized. Pardon the pun with the name, but but they can be optimized. So as many people, regardless of what they have, and for some people, some people might look at a bag of ADA and think it's relatively modest, but for somebody else, it's a lot. And that's really the sort of the red thread that I see between Optim and Twin. So we are going to be working a lot with their ISPO bond, and sort of there's in the next couple of days there's going to be some mutual communication coming out, and of course it's not just the ISPO bonds itself. Our partnership will expand much more than that. But that's really, I think, where we understood when both Optim and Twin were talking to one another, the fact that we've got our core beliefs and their core beliefs, and they're so strongly aligned. It just made a lot of sense that we then strike up a partnership, and there will be, I'm sure, countless different projects and initiatives that we'll be able to work on together.
I'll be keeping an eye out for that. And I think it's always a positive thing when we see Cardano native projects collaborating within each other. I think, again, It shows outsiders, we're not infighting for anything. We understand that different protocols play different roles, and that we can all aid each other here in this vision of bringing these opportunities to people that lack them right now.
Right. Exactly. And let's say that somebody, somewhere, where you're sitting in Louisiana, or it doesn't matter where they are, they're thinking, actually, I wouldn't mind actually investing into some gold. But, they know that, going and buying physical gold, it is awkward, it's expensive. Where do you go? Is the gold really pure gold? There are so many questions and pitfalls that you can fall into. So let's say that someone wants to buy gold because they believe that gold is going to increase in value. But they also understand that they want to buy a tokenized format of gold, and they come across Twin. With Optim, they will be able to, essentially, position themselves and have a greater possibility of obtaining perhaps more VVG, which is our gold token, than they would without the sort of service that Optim is providing. So it's that type of collaboration that I see working really well. And we're super excited to see how the partnership's going to form and what we're going to be doing together.
I'm excited for you guys as well. I have to sneak in one last question here, Thomas. As you were speaking about gold, this just came to my mind, and I'm sure that other viewers that are watching this video are probably thinking the same thing. So as Twin, right, you guys are going to be getting access to these kilos of real world assets. Right. Can you answer or touch on where they're going to be stored and what kind of security measures are going to be in place to make sure that the treasuries are not only accurate, but safe?
Right, sure. Well, with the precious metals, most probably the metal's not going to go anywhere. It's not even going to move. So as we sell token, we then buy the gold. But the actual gold itself, the physical metal, will stay in vaults and probably stay in the same shelf in vault as it has done for who knows when. And the vault is in the Channel Islands. It's arguably one of the safest places in the world. It's an island. It's virtual. I actually am not allowed to disclose exactly where the vault is. There's strict protocols. So the security on its exact location is really top notch. The physical vault, so our partner, where the precious metals are sitting, they are audited, and they're audited on a periodic basis. Like I've mentioned before, they're LBMA certified, so all 4 of their metals are LBMA certified. And we will be able to work with the potentially the same auditor that's auditing the actual physical gold and silver, or perhaps we will be working with several different auditors. And rather than just following the periodic audits that they carry out, perhaps we will increase the frequency of the audits. Our idea is that at any point in time, I want somebody to be able to go, log into their Twin account and see exactly, for example, how many VVG token have we sold versus how much gold has actually been purchased. And those two need to align all the time, every time. So it's, to answer your question, it's one of the most secure vaults in the world, and it's going to be following the same auditing procedures as are already in place, but probably will be improving them, or at least when I say improving them in terms of timing, the amount of audits, when or the frequency of the audits. So anyone, like I said, can check in and have that peace of mind that the tokens that they're holding are backed by the gold or silver or whatever, or the platinum or palladium.
That's exactly, I think, what the community needs to hear. And that kind of rigorous process to make sure that everything lines up one to one and is secure is what's going to build the community's confidence in being able to invest in a platform like Twin long term.
Right, and also, in order, because we've been talking about compliance, regulation, and this is one of the key points. In order for us to receive our licensing and to be fully compliant with regulation, of course, the regulators will also be demanding from Twin precisely to make sure that we are keeping the amount that we sell versus the amount of gold that we purchase from the sale or the proceeds of the token precisely up to date and always one-to-one. So that is one of the pluses. Some people might say that the regulation is maybe weakening their sort of idea of potentially how we fit into DeFi or such like. But one of the advantages is the full transparency that also the regulators that we'll be adhering to will be demanding from Twin. So it's going to be, I agree with you, it's going to be something I think people will realize is really filling in a much needed gap.
All right. So I would love to keep going here, Thomas. I think this is going to be the first of a few. I'm trying to respect your workation. I need to let you enjoy some of your time off.
But I could talk about Twin all day, all day, every day. So it comes from passion. So, no. But no, I'm sure there will be another time, and I really have enjoyed coming on, and I thank you for inviting me. So yeah, just whenever you want to catch up and chat and hear what we're doing, just ping me and drop me a line. I'll be happy to come back on.
Will do. This is definitely not going to be the last time that I'll be having you here on the channel. I'll be doing my part here to keep the community updated as to all the updates when it comes to Twin. Again, if you guys are just hearing about Twin for the very first time, go ahead and check out the links in the video description down below as to not only get more information surrounding their roadmap and what they're bringing in terms of their offering, but also surrounding their white paper and their documentation. Again, just to kind of get a better understanding of this solution that is going to be tokenizing real world assets. Again, Thomas, I want to thank you so much for your time here. And again, I look forward to bringing you back on the channel as you guys progress in building out the entire Twin protocol. And on that note, if it's the viewer's first time watching this channel, please make sure to go ahead and tap that like button. If you guys enjoy this kind of content and you guys want more of it, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you guys have any questions for me or Thomas surrounding Twin, then make sure to go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. That said, and as always, we'll both catch you guys in the next video.